And now it's time for Sleet Reads with your host, Sleet. Applause! You applauded, right? I know Farmos did. I heard Farmos applauding. The Sharky say, yay! How's everybody tonight? We are officially in November. I haven't seen y'all since last month. In theory, you did. In theory, you applauded. Hypothetical applause. I can't prove or disprove, so. Yeah. Our puppy had a dental appointment today, which did involve anesthesia. Anesthesia. Really enunciate. So, he's kind of out of it today. He's not like. Yeah, he's not too bad, but he's basically slept most of the day away after getting back. He was gone for all of the morning. We were very lonely without him. Oh, I forgot to put on my jacket. It's right there. I forgot it. Well, it's too late now. I got my. Well, we both got our flu shots on Monday. Yeah, it was Monday. And I also at the same time got my tetanus shot. So I've got band-aids on both arms, and both of my arms are actually kind of sore. And yesterday was kind of a write-off for me. I was achy pretty well everywhere and just yeah, a twofer. We went there and they were like, "Oh, we're doing walk-ins now," and I was like, "Okay," we're like, "Great, that's perfect." And then the lady was like, do you have your tetanus?" And I was like, "I don't think so." No idea. I don't think I've gotten very many shots in the past quite a long time, other than COVID. Other than COVID shots. So, yeah, Farmos, where she was working in 2017, they did tetanus shots, like, for all the employees. But luckily, I haven't. That it hasn't been a problem for me. But and now I'm all shotted up. But I'm pretty sure there's lots more. I in the process I signed up for my like health services app thing where you can see your medical history for the past however long, and there's not much on mine. Sharky had his after a fabricated furniture incident. Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity, might as well. I don't think that there's a downside other than the sore arm and me being kind of knocked out for a day. Still don't think I'm at 100%. My arms are still sore, but Robot Kyo can't remember. Well, if you want to check, you can sign up for the BC Services app or something like that. Like, you know what? I can tell you exactly what. I can even show you the icon. It's called BC Services Card. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, it gets you to do a bunch of verification stuff, which is kind of silly. You have to like take a picture of your face, and then you have to take a video where it'll tell you to do some different things, and like, yeah. And then from there, it will give you the dates in which, for instance, I was in the hospital last year to have my gallbladder removed, and all of that was listed in there. All of the different things in the hospital for that. And then some stuff as far back from me as like at least 2012, I think. I don't remember if there was anything earlier than that. Oh, look who it is. Oh, hello. Hello. Do you want a treat? Have you been a very good puppy today? A very hard done by puppy? You want this one? Look, it's right here. Here, spin, spin. Here, go get it. It's behind you. Oh, oh, okay. I'll give you another. You'll find that one later. Oh, he found it. He's just hanging out now. Yeah, he didn't have breakfast and he only had like half a dinner. Um, so he's a little on the hungry side this evening, I think. And that's why he's sitting there looking all sad in the background. Oh, having to lay down. Good puppy. What a good boy. Well, I have completely lost my train of thought. How was Halloween D&D? Farmos and Robot Keo can tell you. They were both there. We had definitely had a big, like, several-hour break kind of in the middle of it for Halloween activities, such as answering the door and scaring children. So that was fun. Um, Farmo says it was super fun. Yeah, I definitely also felt pretty rusty, but I think it went decently. Should I give a recap? Uh, our four players, being a merfolk druid, a satyr bard, a half elf warlock, and a half elf cleric, all woke up with almost none of their belongings, just what they were wearing when they went to bed, in some spooky woods. Um, they found a corpse that was clutching a letter, beseeching whatever heroes to turn their backs on the land of Barovia and encircle it with the signs of good and basically leave the inhabitants for dead because Barovia is being harried by a vampire. Then they started hearing the howls of wolves, so they quickly made haste towards a road, where they were presented with a choice of. They soon found a gate, a large gate, and they decided, whether to pass through the gate or turn their backs and try to head for the mist behind them. But they headed through the gate, which closed behind them, followed a road for several hours before they found a crossroads with two small children that were claiming there was a ghost in their house. Or not a ghost, a monster. I just saw Farmhouse saying ghost. A monster in their house, and their parents were keeping it in the basement, I think it said, and, help. So, everyone made their way into the Durst Manor. It's a merfolk with legs, a legged folk type. It's technically there was a this like D&D and Magic the Gathering kind of crossover book, um, and there were a few races in that, which I think the satyr is from as well. But the merfolk from there are like 7 to 8 feet tall, and blue skin and colorful hair. Or, yeah. So so that works out. But yeah, so they made their way into the manor, and they were able to loot a fair amount of stuff from within. So they pretty quickly, at least somewhat, rearmed themselves. I think there's still a few key items missing, and I don't think they've got much in the way of coin back. But upon making their way up to the third floor of the manor, um, the whole place kind of aged visibly before their eyes, and all of the windows bricked over and doors all bricked over, and they found themselves trapped inside. And things got and all the lights went out in the house. Before it was pretty warm and welcoming, but after that, not so much. So yeah, they had, I think, only one fight so far. There was a room with three supposedly stuffed wolves in it, but when they came back to the room later, turned out that there were only two stuffed wolves and one actual wolf. So they dealt with that. I don't think they fought anything else. I think that's it. But it was yeah, a spooky time was had. I think everyone said they had fun. So that was, yeah, that was how that went. And we had, I didn't even count at all how many kids came to the door. Uh, Izzy and I spooked a few of them because we were both kind of wearing masks, and really played up the scary side of Halloween when they came to get candy. Robot Kyo says, with how we were equipped and how tough that was, I think we were lucky only one of the three wolves were real. Yeah, that could have been a little rougher if it had lasted more than a turn or two. Wolves aren't that tough individually, so it went down pretty fast, especially since one of wolves' kind of key abilities is their pack tactics. So with only one of them, it can't take advantage of pack tactics. But yeah, quite a few kids. There were there was one or two that once they got their candy ran away. There was one particular child that was so like transfixed that she wouldn't open the bag for us to put candy into it. So we're like trying to give her candy, and she's just standing there, just maintaining eye contact, not moving. And we're kind of like, I felt a little bad after that one. She was maybe too spooked. But yeah, that was fun. And I loved your guys' costumes, the whole Hilda theme. Is the Wood Boy, is that what it's called? The Wood Boy, is that from Hilda as well? I think I've watched like one episode of Hilda, but I just haven't invested the time into it yet. Hey, Pop. You sleepy today? Keeping me company while I do this? All from Hilda? Okay, cool. They looked great. The costumes look great, especially compared to the reference pictures. Everything fit very well. So, great job there. So, where were we? If it appears that I'm sitting a little bit lower than usual, it's because my chair, I didn't actually have a chair at my computer here. All of the chairs are in the other room where we were playing D&D. Um, and my chair is way at the very back, and it's not a lightweight piece of furniture, so getting it from there to here, when I realized, because I only realized I didn't have a chair here like 20 minutes ago. So by the time I realized, I was like, well, I'll just grab the closest chair, which happens to be one of our old broken chairs. Sharky's original plan months ago was to be a full-sized Hilda troll, but that would have been a few months build. That would be impressive. Let me show you our. We've got a temporary D&D table set up while we wait for our actual table, our custom table, to be finished construction. We've had this room that Farmos has been filling with various fantasy maps on the walls. So there's maps from all kinds of different worlds, and we've got the table set up there. You can see my Dungeon Master screen and dice tower and stuff. That's actually Robot Kyo's little folding table, which is great, but just using it as a temporary solution. Oh, that reminds me. I will be right back. Okay, so I ran away because I'm gonna have to stand up again for this, but one of the maps that isn't visible in that photo. Oh, what's being said here? It's 4 feet by 6 feet. Yes. Shark, you say sometimes we daydream of something outlandish, but we're middle class boomers or something who have a house with a basement we could turn in. Oh, like we are middle class boomers or something who have a house with a basement we could turn into a games. So, one of the maps on our wall that is not in said picture is the map of Ankh-Morpork. Let me see, it says it at the bottom here. The Ankh-Morpork doodle map. So there's all kinds of different locations and things in here, as you get the reflection of my monitor, which is slightly awkward. Some of it is all, like, I'm pretty sure there are some place names and things in here. It's far too big for me to really show all of it, like, I mean, in any detail. As you can see, it's, compared to my torso, it's quite large. Let me see what I can pick out on here. This was by Peter Dennis, apparently. Is it not really labeled? And I think it's got some of the more recent details on here. For instance, I think I see a Clax Tower, which has not come up in Discworld until much later. And weirdly, there's actually like boats on the Ankh River. I thought that some of the places were like labeled, but now I'm not really seeing any labels, so I guess not. Unless I'm just completely glossing over them. But I don't think that's the case. I mean, there's definitely some big places here. I wonder whether there's anything specific like Lady Ramkin's house. I think there's a track, like a racetrack. And I would guess the place at the center is the Patrician's Palace. Oh, there's a big... There's some stuff in there that should come out. Well, anyways, I really like that particular one. I'll have to put it back later, but it can be in the background for now. Vaguely in the back. Yeah, when they sent it, it came with like Ankh-Morpork postage on the shipping tube and things, I believe, which was pretty great. So, yeah. We've got a few nice spaces in our place. We've got, in our computer room here, we've got kind of a setup area for VR so that we've got room to kind of move around a bit. And then we've got that space where we can fit a table for doing gaming and stuff. It's not too bad. Farmhouse had a heck of a time getting all the different frames for all the different maps. Yeah, there's quite a lot of them. There's Midgar from Final Fantasy VII. There's the I don't actually know what the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender is named off the top of my head, but that world. We've got a map from there. We've got Faerun from Forgotten Realms for D&D. We've got maybe 2 different Legend of Zelda maps. I'm pretty sure we've got a Witcher map. Lots of different fantasy maps up on that wall. I'm definitely forgetting some. I'm sure Farmhouse will fill in 1 or 2. Well, it's already 20 past 7. Past 20 past 7, so I should probably do a quick recap before and then jump back into this. I've been kind of going on for a bit here. So let's see. Last we heard of the librarian, he was off through the bookcases, leaving, into L space, spooling out some string behind. A dragon, a full-size noble dragon, reappeared all on its own and swept off and burnt down a particular building. And it seems that pretty well just, I think, Brother Fingers and the Supreme Grand Master did not get turned into a puddle. Oh, Puppy's back again. Hey, Puppy. You keeping me company? While I talk to myself over here? Oh, you can kind of see his tail go up over the there it goes. Over the frame. That's adorable. Ah, yes, we have the Shire and surrounding area, the Ocarina of Time, Hyrule, and the Dragon Age maps. I already mentioned Final Fantasy VII Midgar. I guess it's just Final Fantasy. It's not just Midgard, it's because Midgard's the city, so it's the whole world of Final Fantasy VII, I suppose. Yes, so they apprehended Brother Fingers, Vimes and Nobby, and Carrot, I believe, apprehended Brother Fingers. And then the Supreme Grand Master they spotted, but he ran away, and Carrot had been told not to run in the watch, so he did not, take him down in a flash. Despite, I'm sure, being very capable of doing so. And yeah, that's roughly where we're at. We are on page 243 out of, I believe, 412. Yeah. So at this point, we are actually over halfway through. Farmhouse likes geek chic. So why don't I get into it, huh? What do you say? What do you say to that? What do you say I read a book on this here book reading stream? Well, I'm gonna. I'll go back a couple of lines here. "It's the king's palace now," said Carrot. Vimes squinted sideways at him. He gave a short, mirthless laugh. "Yeah, that's right," he conceded. "Our dragon-killing king. Well done, that man." He sighed. "They're not going to like this." They didn't. None of them did. The first problem was the palace guard. Vimes had never liked them. They'd never liked him. Okay, so maybe the rank were only one step away from petty scofflaws, but in Vimes's professional opinion, the palace guard these days were only one step away from being the worst criminal scum the city had ever produced. A step further down. They'd have to reform a bit before they could even be considered for inclusion in the 10 most unwanted list. They were rough. They were tough. They weren't the sweepings off the gutter. They were what you still found sticking to the gutter when the gutter sweepers had given up in exhaustion. They had been extremely well paid by the patrician, and presumably were extremely well paid by someone else now, because when Vimes walked up to the gates, a couple of them stopped lounging against the walls and straightened up while still maintaining just the right amount of psychological slouch to cause maximum offense. "Captain Vimes," said Vimes, staring straight ahead, "to see the king. It's of the utmost importance." "Yeah? Well, it'd have to be," said a guard. "Captain Slimes, was it?" "Vimes," said Vimes evenly, "with a V." One of the guards nodded to his companion. "Vimes," he said, "with a V." "Fancy," said the other guard. "It's most urgent," said Vimes, maintaining a wooden expression. He tried to move forward. The first guard sidestepped neatly and pushed him sharply in the chest. "No one is going nowhere," he said. "Orders of the king, see? Now, so you can push off back to your pit, Captain Vimes with a V." It wasn't the words which made up Vimes's mind. It was the way the other man sniggered. "Stand aside," he said. The guard leaned down. "Who's going to make me?" he rapped on Vimes's helmet. "Copper?" There are times when it is a veritable pleasure to drop the bomb right away. "Lance Constable Carrot, I want you to charge these men," said Vimes. Carrot saluted. "Very good, sir," he said, and turned and trotted smartly back the way they had come. "Hey!" shouted Vimes as the boy disappeared around a corner. "That's what I like to see," said the first guard, leaning on his spear. "That's a young man with initiative, that young man. A bright lad. He doesn't want to stop along here and have his ears twisted off. That's a young man who's going to go a long way, if he's got any sense." "Very sensible," said the other guard. He leaned the spear against the wall. "You watchmen make me want to throw up," he said conversationally. "Pouncing around all the time, never doing a proper job of work. Throwing your weight around as if you counted for something. So me and Clarence are going to show you what real guarding is all about. Isn't that right?" I could just about manage one of them, Vimes thought as he took a few steps backward. If he was facing the other way, at least. Clarence propped his spear against the gateway and spat on his hands. There was a long, terrifying ululation? Is it ululation? Ululation? You know, like the Xena war cry. That's an ululation, right? Sharky say not unheard of. Reading a book on a book reading stream, I mean. Farmhouse thinks ululation. There was a long, terrifying ululation. Vimes was amazed to realize it wasn't coming from him. Robot Kyo's never known how to pronounce that one. Alright. Carrot appeared around the corner at a dead run. He had a felling axe in either hand. His huge leather sandals flapped on the cobblestones as he bounded closer, accelerating all the time. And all the time there was this cry, dee-da, 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 like something caught in a trap at the bottom of a two-tone echo canyon. The two palace guards stood rigid with astonishment. "I should duck if I was you," said Vimes from near ground level. The two axes left Carrot's hands and whirred through the air, making a noise like a brace of partridges. One of them hit the palace gate, burying half the head in the woodwork. The other one hit the shaft of the first one and split it. Then Carrot arrived. Vimes went and sat down on a nearby bench for a while, and rolled himself a cigarette. Eventually he said, "I think that's about enough, Constable. I think they'd like to come quietly now." "Yes, sir. What are they accused of, sir?" said Carrot, holding one limp body in either hand. "Assaulting an officer of the watch in the execution of his duty, and... oh, yes, resisting arrest." "Under Section VII of the Public Order Act of 1457? said Carrot. "Yes," said Vimes solemnly. "Yes. Yes, I suppose so." "But they didn't resist very much, sir," Carrot pointed out. Oh, Farmo says she was wrong. Ululation. Okay, alright. Well, I knew it was one of the two. Or maybe it's pronounced either. Might be dialectical. "But they didn't resist very much, sir," Carrot pointed out. "Well, attempting to resist arrest. I should just leave them over by the wall until we come back. I don't expect they'll want to go anywhere." "Right you are, sir." "Don't hurt them, mind," said Vimes. "You mustn't hurt prisoners." "That's right, sir," said Carrot conscientiously. "Prisoners once charged have rights, sir. It says so in the Dignity of Man, Civic Rights, Act of 1341. I keep telling Corporal Nobbs. They have rights, I tell him. This means you do not put the boot in." Very well put, Constable. Farmo says dictionary.com has both pronunciations. Well, well. Then I was doubly right. I was right twice. Carrot looked down. "You have the right to remain silent," he said. "You have the right not to injure yourself falling down the steps on the way to the cells. You have the right not to jump out of high windows. You do not have to say anything you see, but anything you do say, well, I have to take it down and it might be used in evidence." He pulled out his notebook and licked his pencil. He leaned down further. "Pardon?" he said. He looked up at Vimes. "How do you spell groan, sir?" he said. "Grone, I think." "Very good, sir." "Oh, and Constable?" "Yes, sir." "Why the axes?" "They were armed, sir. I got them from the blacksmith in Market Street, sir. I said you'd be along later to pay for them." "And the cry?" said Vimes weakly. "Dwarfish war yodel, sir," said Carrot proudly. "It's a good cry, said Vimes, picking his words with care. But I'd be grateful if you'd warn me first, another time. All right? Certainly, sir. In writing, I think. There's some great dialogue there. The librarian swung on. It was slow progress, because there were things he wasn't keen on meeting. Creatures evolved to fill every niche in the environment, and some of those in the dusty immensity of L-space were best avoided. They were much more unusual than ordinary unusual creatures. Usually, he could forewarn himself by keeping a careful eye on the kickstool crabs that grazed harmlessly on the dust. When they were spooked, it was time to hide. Several times he had to flatten himself against the shelves as a thesaurus thundered by. Library puns. As a thesaurus thundered by. Oh boy. Oh, that's rough. He waited patiently as a herd of critters crawled past, grazing on the contents of the choicer books and leaving behind them piles of small, slim volumes of literary criticism. The critters left behind volumes of criticism. I don't know if I can handle this, guys. I think I might be done with this book. I think I've got to give up here. I don't think I can go any further. I'm feeling kind of defeated. Look at that cute puppy, though. He's so cute. Sharky say this makes me so happy. I am not even a little bit surprised by that. Parmo says he is very cute. I don't think that's what the Sharkies were saying makes them happy. Alright. The critters, criticism. And there were other things. Things which he hurried away from and tried not to look hard at. And you had to avoid cliches at all costs. He finished the last of his peanuts atop a stepladder, which was browsing mindlessly off the high shelves. It's just nonstop. The territory definitely had a familiar feel, or at least he got the feeling that it would eventually be familiar. Time had a different meaning in L-space. There were shelves whose outline he felt he knew. The book titles, while still unreadable, held a tantalizing hint of legibility. Even the musty air had a smell he thought he recognized. He shambled quickly along a side passage, turned the corner, and, with only the slightest twinge of disorientation, shuffled into that set of dimensions that people, because they don't know any better, think of as normal. He just felt extremely hot, and his fur stood straight out from his body as temporal energy gradually discharged. He was in the dark. He extended one arm and explored the spines of the books by his side. Ah, now he knew where he was. He was home. He was home a week ago. It was essential that he didn't leave footprints. But that wasn't a problem. He shinned up the side of the nearest bookcase and, under the starlight of the dome, hurried onwards. Time travel. I forget, did we settle on Lupin once or Lupine? I think Lupin. Lupin once. Farmo says pin. Lupin once glared up, red-eyed, from the heap of paperwork on his desk. No one in the city knew anything about coronations. He'd had to make it up as he went along. There should be plenty of things to wave, he knew that. Yes, he said abruptly. There's a Captain Vimes to see you, said the flunky. Vimes of the watch? Yes, sir. Says it's of the utmost importance. Once looked down his list of other things that were also of the utmost importance. Crowning the king, for one thing. The high priests of 53 religions were all claiming the honor. It was going to be a scrum. And then there were the crown jewels. Or rather, there weren't the crown jewels. Somewhere in the preceding generations, the crown jewels had disappeared. A jeweler in the street of cunning artificers was doing the best he could in the time with gilt and glass. Vimes could wait. Tell him to come back another day, said Once. Good of you to see us, said Vimes, appearing in the doorway. Once glared at him. Since you're here, he said. Vimes dropped his helmet on Once's desk in what the secretary thought was an offensive manner, and sat down. Take a seat, said Once. Have you had breakfast yet? Said Vimes. Now, really, Once began. Don't worry, said Vimes cheerfully. Constable Carrot will go and see what's in the kitchens. This chap will show him the way. When they had gone, Once leaned across the drifts of paperwork. There had better, he said, be a very good reason for the dragon is back, said Vimes. Once stared at him for a while. Vimes stared back. Once's senses came back from whatever corners they'd bounced into. You've been drinking, haven't you? He said. No, the dragon is back. Now look, Once began flatly. I saw it, said Vimes flatly. A dragon. You're sure? Vimes leaned across the desk. No! I could be bloody mistaken, he shouted. It may have been something else with sodding great big claws, huge leathery wings, and hot fiery breath. There must be masses of things like that. But we all saw it killed, said Once. I don't know what we saw, said Vimes, but I know what I saw. He leaned back, shaking. He was suddenly feeling extremely tired. Anyway, he said in a more normal voice, it's flamed a house in Bitwash Street, just like the other ones. Any of them get out? Vimes put his head in his hands. He wondered how long it was since he'd last had any sleep. Proper sleep, the sort with sheets. Or food, come to that. Was it last night, or the night before? Had he ever, come to think of it, ever slept at all in his life? It didn't seem like it. The arms of Morpheus had rolled up their sleeves and were giving the back of his brain a right pummeling, but bits were fighting back. Any of them get... Any of who? He said. The people in the house, of course, said Wantz. I assume there were people in it. At night, I mean. Oh? Oh. Yes. It wasn't like a normal house. I think it was some sort of secret society thing, Vimes managed. Something was clicking in his mind, but he was too tired to examine it. Magic, you mean? Dunno, said Vimes. Could be. Guys in robes. He's going to tell me I've been overdoing it, he said. He'll be right, too. Look, said Wantz kindly. People who mess around with magic and don't know how to control it, well, they can blow themselves up, and... Blow themselves up? And you've had a busy few days, said Wantz soothingly. If I'd been knocked down and almost burned alive by a dragon, I expect I'd be seeing them all the time. Vimes stared at him, with his mouth open. He couldn't think of anything to say. Whatever stretched and knotted elastic had been driving him along these last few days had gone entirely limp. You don't think you've been overdoing it, do you? Said Wantz. Ah, thought Vimes. Jolly good. He slumped forward. The librarian leaned cautiously over the top of the bookcase and unfolded an arm into the darkness. There it was. His thick fingernails grasped the spine of the book, pulled it gently from its shelf, and hoisted it up. He raised the lantern carefully. No doubt about it. Oof, I'm fumbling. The Summoning of Dragons. Single copy, first edition, slightly foxed, and extremely dragoned. He set the lamp down beside him and began to read the first page. Said Vimes, waking up.
Rung you a nice cup of tea, Cap'n,
said Sergeant Colin.
And a figgin.
Vimes looked at him blankly.
You've been asleep,
said Sergeant Colin helpfully.
You was spark out when Carrot brought you back.
Vimes looked around at the now familiar surroundings of the yard. Oh, he said.
Me and Nobby have been doing some detectoring, said Colin. You know that house that got melted? Well, no one lives there. It's just rooms that get hired out. So, we found out who hired them. There's a caretaker who goes along every night to put the chairs away and lock up. He wasn't half creating about it being burned down.
He wasn't half creating about it.
You know what caretakers are like.
He stood back, waiting for the applause. Well done, said Vimes dutifully, dunking the figgin into the tea. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is. Farmo says, nice callback to figgin. What was it your figgin would be done to? Hoisted? Would your figgin be hoisted? Something like that? Or your figgin impaled on a spike, upon a spike? Placed on a spike? Dunked in tea?
There's 3 societies use it.
Not just once, but twice. Alright, okay. I can get myself back under control. I can do this. Don't say it. It's a figgin. It's not any other thing. There's there's 3 societies use it, said Colin. He extracted his notebook. 2 whit, viz. The Ankh-Morpork Fine Art Appreciation Society, hem. The Morpork Folk Dance and Song Club, and the Elucidated Brethren of the Ebon Night. Oh boy, I'm having trouble with this episode. Why hem, said Vimes. Well, you know, fine art. It's just men painting pictures of young women in the nud. The altogether, explained Colin, the connoisseur. The caretaker told me. Some of them don't even have any paint on their brushes, you know. Shameful. Sharky say, thrown off by a figgin. Yeah, the figgin got me. I love that, though. The Morpork Fine Art Appreciation Society, the Morpork Folk Dance and Song Club, and the Elucidated Brethren of the Ebon Night. I wonder which group it might have been in the hooded robes. Farmos says, right in the figgin. There must be a million stories in the naked city, thought Vimes. So why do I always have to listen to ones like these? When do they meet? He said. Mondays, 7:30, admission 10 pence, said Colin promptly. As for the folk dance people, well, no problem there. You know, you always wondered what Corporal Nobbs does on his evenings off? Colin's face split into a watermelon grin. No, said Vimes incredulously. Not Nobby? Yep, said Colin, delighted at the result. What? Jumping about with bells on and waving his hanky in the air? He says it is important to preserve old folkways, said Colin. Nobby? Mr. Steel toe-caps in the groin, I was just checking the door handle and it opened all by itself? Yeah, funny old world, ain't it? He was very bashful about it. Good grief, said Vimes. It just goes to show, you never can tell, said Colin. Anyway, the caretaker said the elucidated brethren always leave the place in a mess. Scuffed chalk marks on the floor, he said, and they never put the chairs back properly or wash out the tea urn. They've been meeting a lot lately, he said. The nutty women painters had to meet somewhere else last week. What did you do with our suspect? Said Vimes. Him? Oh, he done a runner, Captain, said the sergeant, looking embarrassed. Why? He didn't look in any shape to run anywhere. Well, when we got him back here, we sat him down by the fire and wrapped him up, because he kept on shivering, said Sergeant Colin, as Vimes buckled his armor on. I hope you didn't eat his pizzas. Errol ate 'em. It's the cheese, see? It goes all... Go on. Well, said Colin, awkwardly, he kept on shivering, sort of thing,
and groaning on about dragons and that. We felt sorry for him, to tell the truth. And then he jumps up and runs out of the door for no reason at all.
Vimes glanced at the sergeant's big, open, dishonest face. No reason, he prompted.
Well, we decided to have a bite, so I sent Nobby out to the baker's, see, and, well, we thought the prisoner ought to have something to eat.
Yes, said Vimes encouragingly.
Well, when Nobby asked him if he wanted his figgin toasted, he just gave a scream and ran off.
Just that, said Vimes. Just that, said Vimes. You didn't threaten him in any way.
Straight up, Captain. Bit of a mystery, if you ask me. He kept going on about someone called Supreme Grand Master.
Vimes glanced out the window. Grey fog lagged the world with dim light. What time is it? He said.
5 o'clock, sir.
Right. Well, before it gets dark... Colin gave a cough.
In the morning, sir. This is tomorrow, sir.
You let me sleep all day?
Didn't have the heart to wake you up, sir. No dragon activity, if that's what you're thinking. Dead quiet all around, in fact.
Vimes glared at him and threw the window open. The fog rolled in a slow, yellow-edged waterfall.
Well, you reckon it must have flown away,
said Colin's voice behind him. Vimes stared up into the heavy, rolling clouds.
Hope it clears up for the coronation, sir,
Colin went on in a worried voice.
You all right, sir?
It hasn't flown away, Vimes thought. Why should it fly away? We can't hurt it, and it's got everything it wants right here. It's up there somewhere.
You all right, sir?
Colin repeated. It's got to be up high somewhere, in the fog. There's all kinds of towers and things. What time's the coronation, Sergeant? He said.
Noon, sir. And Mr. Wants has sent you a message about how you're to be in your best armor among all the civic leaders, sir.
Oh, has he?
And Sergeant Hummock and the day squad will be lining the route, sir.
What with? Said Vimes vaguely, watching the skies.
Sorry, sir?
Vimes squinted upwards to get a better view of the roof. He said.
I said they'll be lining the route, sir,
said Sergeant Colin. It's up there, Sergeant, said Vimes. I can practically smell it.
Yes, sir,
said Colin obediently. It's deciding what to do next.
Yes, sir.
They're not unintelligent, you know. They just don't think like us.
Yes, sir.
So be damned to any lining of the route. I want you three up on them roofs, understand?
Yes, sir. What?
Up on the roofs. Up high. When it makes its move, I want us to be the first to know. Colin tried to indicate by his expression that he didn't.
Do you think that's a good idea, sir?
He ventured. Vimes gave him a blank look. Yes, Sergeant, I do. It was one of mine, he said coldly. Now go and see to it. When he was left to himself, Vimes washed and shaved in cold water, and then rummaged in his campaign chest until he unearthed his ceremonial breastplate and red cloak. Well,
The cloak had been read once, and still was here and there, although more of it resembled a small net used very successfully for catching moths. There was also a helmet, defiantly without plumes, from which the molecule-thick gold leaf had long ago peeled. He'd started saving up for a new cloak once. Whatever had happened to the money? There was no one in the guardroom. Errol lay in the wreckage of the fourth fruit box Nobby had scrounged for him. The rest had all been eaten, or had dissolved. In the warm silence, the everlasting rumbling of his stomach sounded especially loud. Occasionally he whimpered. Vimes scratched him vaguely behind the ears. "What's up with you, boy?" he said. The door creaked open. Carrot came in, saw Vimes hunkered down by the ravaged box, and saluted. "We're a bit worried about him, Captain," he volunteered. "He hasn't eaten his coal. Just lies there, twitching and whining all the time. You don't think something's wrong with him, do you?" "Possibly," said Vimes, "but having something wrong with them is quite normal for a dragon. They always get over it, one way or another." Errol gave him a mournful look and closed his eyes again. Vimes pulled his scrap of blanket over him. There was a squeak. He fished around beside the dragon's shivering body, pulled out a small rubber hippo, stared at it in surprise, and then gave it one or two experimental squeezes. "I thought it would be something for him to play with," said Carrot, slightly shamefaced. "You bought him a little toy?" "Yes, sir." What a kind thought. Vimes hoped Carrot hadn't noticed the fluffy ball tucked into the back of the box. It had been quite expensive. Oh. He left the two of them and stepped into the outside world. There was even more bunting now. People were beginning to line the main streets, even though there were hours to wait. It was still very depressing. He felt an appetite for once, one that it'd take more than a drink or two to satisfy. Oh. He's so tuckered out. Farmo says that's even cuter when you can also see Puppy with his little fuzzy dragon back there. Yep. Just laying full on flat on the ground. He strolled along for breakfast at Harga's House of Ribs, the habit of years, and got another unpleasant surprise. Normally, the only decoration in there was on Sham Harga's vest, and the food was good solid stuff for a cold morning, all calories and fat and protein, and maybe a vitamin crying softly because it was all alone. Now, laboriously made paper streamers crisscrossed the room, and he was confronted with a crayoned menu in which the words Coronaison and Royale figured somewhere on every crooked line. Vimes pointed wearily at the top of the menu. "What's this?" he said. Harga peered at it. They were alone in the grease-walled cafe. "It says, by, B-Y-E, Royal Appointment, Captain," he said proudly. "What's it mean?" Harga scratched his head with a ladle. "What it means is," he said, If the king comes in here, he'll like it.
Sharky say, vitamin all alone, like the one pickled onion in a fruit salad. That is exactly what I was thinking. Have you got anything that isn't too aristocratic for me to eat, then? Said Vimes sourly, and settled for a slice of plebeian fried bread. Plebeian? Plebeian fried bread? Bled? Plebeian fried bread and a proletarian steak, cooked so rare you could still hear it bray. Bray, it says. Doesn't specify what the steak is from. Vimes ate it at the counter. A vague, scraping noise disturbed his thoughts. "What are you doing?" he said. Harga looked up guiltily from his work behind the counter. "Nothing, Cap'n," he said. He tried to hide the evidence behind him when Vimes glared over the knife-chewed woodwork. "Come on, Sham. You can show me." Harga's beefy hands came reluctantly into view. "I was only scraping the old fat out of the pan," he mumbled. "I see. And how long have we known each other, Sham?" said Vimes, with terrible kindness. "Years, Cap'n," said Harga. "You've been coming in here nearly every day, reg'lar. One of my best customers." Vimes leaned over the counter until his nose was level with the squashy pink thing in the middle of Harga's face. "And in all that time, have you ever changed the fat?" he demanded. Harga tried to back away. "Well, it's been like a friend to me, that old fat," said Vimes. "There's black bits in there I've grown to know and love. It's a meal in itself. And you've cleaned out the coffee jug, haven't you? I can tell. This is love in a canoe coffee if I ever tasted it. The other stuff had flavor." "Well, I thought it was time." "Why?" Harga let the pan fall from his pudgy fingers. "Well, I thought if the king should happen to come in, you're all mad. But, Cap'n—" Vimes's accusing finger buried itself up to the second joint in Harga's expensive vest. "You don't even know the wretched fellow's name!" he shouted. Harga rallied. "I do, Cap'n," he stuttered. "Of course I do. Seen it on the decorations and everything. He's called Rex Vivet." Very gently, shaking his head in despair, crying in his heart for the essential servility of mankind, Vimes let him go. What was that? What? You okay? Doing a little stretch? Okay, bye. Bye-bye, pup. Shucky say donkey. Farmhouse is writing down Rex Vivet for ease of understanding that joke. Alright, I'm gonna stop there. Because I'm quite tired and a little bit hungry. I think I'm still kind of recovering from my down and out day yesterday. And also we got up quite early this morning to take Ben to the vet. And then we couldn't nap with a puppy through the day because there wasn't a puppy, so it's just been... I'm all out of sorts. Well, there was a lot today. in that book that got me laughing. Uh, Probably a few things that shouldn't have. And the library puns. Sharkies refer to it in this house as out of swords. Is that like being out of spoons? I usually say I'm out of spell slots in that case. I'm not sure if that's entirely what I'm feeling right now, because I could still do something if I had to. But I could also go sleep if I wanted to. If I weren't worried about it, if I weren't worried about it being too early to go to sleep. So I'll give it an hour or so, and then I'll go to bed early tonight, I think. And I'm sure the pupper will be quite happy about that. Well, I hope everyone else had fun. I hope you all laughed at least half as much as I did, because oh boy. Alright. Well, happy November. Try not to get too bogged down in Christmas advertisements and the like. I've already seen a few. Started getting YouTube Christmas ads already for, like, I don't know, various companies. Sharkies are enjoying my Sergeant Colon. I'm glad to hear that. I'm getting used to it now. I've got the hang of it. I can fall into it pretty easily. It took me a little bit the first, like, quarter of the book to remember what some of the voices were, but well, a lot of the voices have died as the book went on, so I don't have to remember as many of them now. Especially in recent pages. But, yeah, at the very least I've got Sergeant Colon and Nobby and, to an extent, Carrot and Lady Ramkin down, and I just kind of fumble through Vimes. I just do sort of a slightly more formal version of my own voice, really. Sharky say that does thin the crowd. Yeah, it does. I guess there's one upside in this case to characters dying off. I don't have to remember what they sound like. Oh boy, and on that note, have a good night, everyone. Hopefully I'll see you all on Friday. I don't think there's any reason not to, for me. I might be running another separate D&D game tomorrow, though I haven't actually got confirmation about that yet. I'll see if that showed up while I was doing this. Alright. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.